Okay, part 3 about getting a book published. This time I'm going to talk about trade publishing, which is dealing with the big boys. Now my second book, which was Ubuntu Hacks, that one right there, was published by O'Reilly, which is one of the biggest publishing companies in the computer industry. And there were 3 really big advantages to getting that done. The first big advantage is that other than the actual writing, everything is done for you. You don't have to take care of any of the editing or finding a graphic designer to do the cover design and getting printing and all of that sort of stuff. You can basically just concentrate on writing. Everything else just happens, which is awesome. The second big advantage is you actually get a bit of money up front. Like if you're doing self-publishing, you actually have to pay out the money in order to get your book to get your book created before you get a return. If you get a contract with a trade publisher, they will pay you money up front, and you've possibly got a little bit to live on while you're writing, that sort of thing. Now, some explanation on this, because royalties are something that a lot of people don't understand. The way royalties work in the book world is that typically you get a percentage of the cover price on the copies that are sold. In my particular case, I had 2 co-authors for Ubuntu Hacks, and the deal with O'Reilly was that 10% of the cover price was the author's royalty. And because I wrote 41% of the book as the primary contributor, I therefore got 4.1% of the cover price as my royalties. Now think about that for a second. You see a book in the shop and it sells for $20 or something, and you think, oh yeah, a copy of that gets sold, the author must make a few dollars out of it. But the fact is they don't. At 4.1% of the cover price, that's a very small amount of money. But it's still good because there are other advantages. Now the way you get money up front from a trade publisher is they pay you what's called an advance. Now basically what this means is they think about your book and the marketing and how many copies they expect to sell, and they think, okay, we think we can sell X thousand copies in the first 6 months or whatever. And so they then pay you the royalties that you haven't earned yet. So they do an estimate based on what the future earnings could be, and they pay that to you as an advance. Now what that means is that as your book actually starts selling and royalties start coming in from it, you don't get paid because you've already been paid in advance for those royalties, which means there's a big gap. You get a chunk of money up front, and then until your advance is earned out, is the terminology in the trade, you don't actually get any more money from the publisher. So your book might be selling thousands of copies, you don't get another cent until all of that money is essentially, it's like being paid back for the advance. Then once that happens, you get royalties paid, and typically quarterly, so every 3 months, and they're usually 3 months in arrears, which means that if a book is sold today, you don't actually see a cent for that for 6 months, not up to 6 months. So it can take a while, but the upside, of course, is that you get the advance all up front, so you do actually have money in your pocket right from the beginning. Now the third big advantage of being trade published, and this is the killer, this is what makes it absolutely awesome, is the promotion that happens with the book. You don't have to do the promotion yourself. Now they will still expect you to do some promotion. In O'Reilly's case, I did book signings and things like that. But the thing is that if a major publisher comes out with a big new title and they're sending newsletters to all of the retailers like Barnes & Noble and places like that and Borders saying, we've got these new books, the fact is that those big book retailers will probably just order a bunch of copies anyway. They don't need to know about it. They don't need to be sold on it. They simply see it's a new book from O'Reilly, so we're going to order 3 copies for every store. And all of a sudden, there's 2,000 copies that have been ordered right off the bat. And then getting the book out, actually exposed in bookshops, is then what brings in more sales and builds awareness and things like that. So it's really important to get those critical copies out onto the bookstore shelves as fast as possible and as broadly as possible, assuming it's a good book and that it actually sells. Otherwise it's a waste of money, and the publisher gets returns from the bookshops, and then you don't get paid, and it comes out of their bottom line, and it's not good. So the big advantage, and another really big advantage I should mention, is you get an editor. editors are good, generally. I've worked with a couple of different editors. The editor that I worked on for most of Ubuntu Hacks is a guy called Brian Jepson from O'Reilly, and he is a champion. He's awesome. How good your editor is depends almost entirely on how well they communicate with you. I've worked with a couple of other editors who have been hopeless. You'll start a project and then 2 months down the track you've got no idea where it's up to. But in the case of Brian, he was always keeping us updated, letting me know where things are up to, and saying what the deadline is and what particular parts are up for technical review, and then the feedback from the technical review, making sure they get through. Basically, his job was keeping on top of everything and just making sure that the whole process kept running smoothly. And if your editor is good, it makes the process a dream, because you can sit back and concentrate on the writing and know that everything else is being taken care of. You don't have to worry about those details. So that is the really good thing about being trade published. So next time I will talk about what is probably the most practical publishing method for you if you haven't got much of a track record yet, which is assisted self-publishing. That's pretty cool, and it's a reasonably recent development, so see you soon.